Be fun.
Yes.
No, I did just close. All right. So, hi everyone. We are just checking to make sure that we are indeed live on our Facebook page. Welcome to Literacy in Actions Family Literacy Week, the Family Budgeting Edition with Liz from the Atwater Library. We are super excited to have you here today. So I'm just gonna do a quick check. So if you are here with us, please do give us a like, leave a comment, ask a question. I'll be following that while Liz brings us through some stuff. Some of these complicated things that none of us really want to think about, but know we have to. So, so yes, we are ready to roll. How are you feeling, Liz?
Great.
Great. Okay. So, so yeah, we're just gonna explore what family budgeting is, literacy in action. We're doing one-on-one support even during COVID. So give us a call if you are an English speaker who wants help with reading, writing, math, all types of life skills. If we can't support you, we will find a resource that can. And Liz, would you like to take it away? Super pumped about this. So, all right.
Great. Well, thank you, obviously, for having us. Our partnerships and collaborations are so important. We love what the Literacy in Action is doing, and love that we share a passion for this kind of financial literacy. Might be a fancy term, but this idea of leveling the learning field. We are all allowed to know. We are not supposed to have already known. Let's learn together. So I think that's values we hold, and I'm so excited to be here and be a part of this.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm going to start sharing my screen. I've prepared a little presentation, and hopefully that helps illuminate some of what we're going to be talking about today.
Definitely.
There we go. Hopefully everyone can see that. Great. So the more we know about managing our money, the better off we'll be, no matter what stage of life we're in. So like I was saying before, no one is born with money management skills. By the time we're all adults, we're all expected magically to be able to manage our own money effectively. However, few of us are ever taught how, me included. Like driving a car or playing an instrument, the skill of managing money must be learned, and it's never too late to start. So today we want to explore ways to think about a family savings plan and ways to create it. We'll help make some of the terminology more clear, share some strategies for maintaining that budget once it's started, and afterwards, hopefully we'll have a tool to discuss and move forward more proactively. So budgets can help us. It's not how much we make, but what we do with what we've got. Even if we don't already have enough money for ourselves and our families this month, proper money management does not involve a magic formula to find more money. It simply means getting the most from the money we do have. So no matter what amount of money we have, it may be a little and it may be a lot. Making a plan will only help. And family spending plans can only help us make better decisions. So one little note, a family budget will look a little different than an individual or personal budget. Ideally, everyone sharing income and expenses should work together to make these decisions. And it can be hard to know where to start or how to talk about it. So we'll definitely help you lay out the steps on how to create it. I think it's important to hold in our minds the ways we can use our budget. We can use the budget as a guide to get the conversation started with ourselves, our partners if we have them, and other members of our family like children. We can use it to develop a script. How can we start talking about these things? They'll help us focus the conversation. We can let the budget encourage us to call our creditors and make arrangements with realistic goals. Be sure to share with your family a benefit in making this budget. Learn to think about and create a budget as a family, as a unit, as a group.
I'd love to just jump in there for a second,
Please.
because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about how we can ask members of our family, what do they want to save for? So even if your child isn't, of course, working yet or doing things like that, maybe they could be part of the exercise too and making their own little budget on the side that might be separate from the overall family workshop. I mean, from the overall family budget, but that they can learn how to track as well with you, and that they could have a goal, even if it's, buying a book or getting, a drink at the at a store.
Absolutely. If I could just tack on to that, sometimes good advice comes from the most unexpected places. Get more minds thinking about a situation or a context only can help for sure. And especially with younger children, maybe it adds a little more fun to it also. Definitely. Great. So a budget is really a family spending plan. That's all a budget really is. It's a plan for how your family spends its money. Without a budget, we really can't make every dollar stretch because we might not even know how much money we have to work with. Plus, our budget may show us places where we can cut back. So, a budget is essentially lists. We're going to make 2 lists. With those lists, we will then be able to add up our income and our expenses and do a quick subtraction from there to find out where we are. Do we have a surplus, a little extra money, or do we have a bit of a deficit and maybe need to call some creditors or make some other arrangements? So essentially, we're making lists. For me personally, it's become a great time management and memory tool, just making lists in general. I can't mess up a list, and it gives me actionable steps that helps me to feel empowered. So a budget is essentially a checklist of monthly goals. And we can get started with any budget with these 3 steps. Make the 2 lists, add them up, do the subtraction.
This is a great time to go get a paper and pen if you have not already. We're going to walk through this a little bit so you have a moment, but go get a paper and pen if you don't, or pencil maybe. This might be a pencil activity.
Agreed. Yeah, and so we will wait a few moments. What's on the screen now are just 2 examples of what those lists may look like. For clarity, rather than my chicken scratch handwriting, they're displayed in a Google Sheet, okay? But again, just like Joanna mentioned, get your pencil, get your paper. It doesn't matter how you make your list, it just matters that you do. So starting with a pencil and a paper is perfect. So the yellow, the one on the left, this is an example of a list of expenses. Again, they might not be the same for everyone, but it could look very much like this, where you're just writing down all the things you might have to put money towards throughout 1 month. You'll notice there are 2 columns. There's a budget and an actual. The budget this is what I think I'm going to spend on that item. Whereas the actual winds up being the amount on the receipt. What did we actually spend on that amount? Again, this isn't entirely a necessary part of your process. Over the years, I've just found it helpful. I'm getting better at making my guesses. I'm still never always accurate as to what exactly the amount of money is I'll have to spend on an item. So for moving forward, I find it helpful to keep track of what I thought I'd spend versus what I actually will or did spend on it. So that's what those 2 columns are. And that's at the left, my expenses. At the right, the blue table is a list of income. So we'll get to that, but this is just to sort of set us up that this is an example of our two lists. And this is how we've basically separated it. Expenses, what we're going to spend our money on. Income, where does that money come from?
And I'd love to, one of the things that I'm observing while looking at it is that these are really, I know you label it as fixed expenses, but it's true that I imagine like, oh, but I'm gonna want to maybe one day buy tickets for a movie or just something that might be random. So you can keep that in mind too for like miscellaneous expenses, like things that you would like to spend more for leisure, not just the essentials. To have a category there, especially as we begin planning forward. But this is such a great list. Thanks.
Absolutely. When I now, after years of budgeting, I have broken my expenses down into fixed, as you see here, and variable or miscellaneous, exactly like Joanna is pointing out. Remember, yours doesn't have to start that way. It's really essentially the two lists. What are you spending the money on? Where's your money coming from? But yes, moving forward, thinking into the future, certainly thinking about that division, that separation of what will always be the same cost, fixed expenses, versus the variable. What is a once in a, not a lifetime, but once, a not so often or not as frequent expense that could be something that you want to think about, but don't stress over it. Okay. So hopefully anybody who had been interested has gotten their pencil and their paper. Okay. Remember too that as we continue, there may be things not on these lists that are more relevant to your life. Add them. There's no wrong answer for these lists. We got to personalize them. Okay. As we develop our conversation and move through our presentation, maybe there will be other items you're going to want to add to those lists. That's great. So, like we said before, there's sort of 3 steps to making a budget. You got to start with your list of expenses and incomes. And we're going to add those all up. What do we do with those numbers? Well, this little formula right here. We'll take the total of our income, where that money's coming from. We will subtract the total of our expenses, where that money's going, and we will wind up with a number. It will be a positive or a negative number. It is not important that we focus or shame ourselves into what that number is. It's more important we're realistically looking at our situation. So if it is a positive number, hey, it's a surplus. Fantastic. Okay, maybe you have a little extra money. You can pay down a little more debt, add to some savings. Okay, if not, if it's negative, which it has been for me for a quite long time, it's normal. Don't panic. What I've really fallen in love with the budget for is highlighting that situation. Oops, I'm operating in a deficit. I'm spending more money than I'm making. Now I need to reformulate what I'm thinking in my plan of attack. What can I do to move myself from the deficit to the surplus? And that's where you want to focus your time and your energy for sure. Okay. So now we're going to talk a little bit about some types of expenses. And I think certainly for most of us, there are what they may call the 4 walls, the 4 most important things: our food, our shelter. Okay. But there may also be some other types of expenses that maybe we're unsure about. Maybe we've heard floating around and we don't really know if it applies to us or not. And so that's where we're going to spend a little bit of our time today talking about 2 types of expenses that we don't hear so much about. So one of those are seasonal expenses. In any season where we spend more money than usual, we could spread out the costs over the entire year. So it could be something like snow tires. We're not having to buy snow tires every month. Clothes for particular season, maybe school supplies. this is not an exhaustive list, and you know your life. So for sure, there's certain expenses that are only occurring or happening, popping up at certain times of the year. Those are exactly the expenses we're talking about. Okay. So what we can do instead of perhaps only being prepared to pay for that expense during that month or that season when it pops up, which I know for me can be particularly burdensome. Okay, that's a lot to have to suddenly buy snow tires in October and November. Well, if I spread that payment across the months over a year, it sets me up for by the time that I do need to pay for that seasonal expense, I've already set aside a bit of money for it. Okay, so it helps us to map out our non-monthly expenses, again, some of those variable expenses for the year, and we can build a savings plan throughout the year to tackle those things and make sure that we're not spending that savings on something else. So a quick example here might be, maybe you do have to buy snow tires. Maybe they cost $2,000 for all 4 of those tires. So if I take that total amount that I would have to pay in October or November and divide by 12 months, rather than having to come up with $2,000 in October, I could try to put away or set aside $166 a month. And over the course of the year, I would then have the $2,000 that I needed to spend on that seasonal expense. This may not be a strategy that can work for everyone, but it's something perhaps to think about and something we could all try to work towards. If it eases that part of your budget, it could be a helpful strategy for sure.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about like school supplies. I'm thinking about just items, maybe it's a new pair of pants because, everybody's growing, everybody's bodies change. So it doesn't necessarily, it can be anything, just something that you know that you are going to have to buy at some point. I think that's a really, really wise advice.
Great, good. And if it helps anybody, all the better. Okay. So, and what's also interesting about thinking about and attacking these kind of maybe surprise or bigger expenses that don't happen as frequently is that what was a variable or a miscellaneous or infrequent expense suddenly becomes a fixed expense because now we have the forethought and we're planning to set aside that money for when we need it, knowing that we will. So perhaps this little calculation moves that item from the variable expense to the fixed expense, knowing that it's coming, knowing that you'll have the money set aside for it. It could change your plan of attack and your budgeting too. Great. So another item that gets, or term, I suppose, that gets thrown around a lot are RRSPs. So essentially, it's a retirement fund, a nest egg that we're building ourselves. Now, at least for me personally, I remember being told a lot, get an RRSP, put your money away, do this, do that. Maybe I wasn't aware enough to ask the question, but I know I definitely was not offered the explanation as to what exactly an RSP is, why is it beneficial. I understand the basics, set aside money for later, but I often live from paycheck to paycheck, and doing something like that seems easier said than done. Okay, so that being said, I think it's important to know that not everybody has the funds or the means to set aside some magical amount, and there is no magical amount. That's what no one told me. And I felt quite a bit of self-imposed, certainly I made myself feel this way, a little bit of shame in that I was not able to put away $150 a month into an RRSP. There's no magical amount. Any amount is the perfect amount. Okay, and that's what I've sort of come to realize. So if you have $5 to set aside this month for RRSP, it's perfect. Working towards being able to perhaps add more in a different month or later on in years. So an RRSP is a registered retirement savings plan, and it's quite simply a saving or investment account. It's a bank account with certain tax saving characteristics. Sorry, Joanna, I think I saw your hand. Yeah.
Yes, I have a question.
Please.
When you talk about putting, $5 or whatever amount aside, does that mean that you're putting it aside in your written budget, or does that mean every month you're doing a transfer of that amount into your into the savings account each month? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. And I think the ultimately, unfortunately, the clear black and white answer I don't have. This is, if we do have RRSPs, it's something we'd have to set up with our financial institutions. So it's a great conversation, and that's a great question for that advisor who would be helping us to set that up. I can tell you though, at least from my perspective, what I would do is I would try to set aside whatever amount that is in my actual budget. $5, $10, Lord willing, $50. But the point being is that by me taking that conscious step and putting it in as an expense in my budget, that is me sort of making this visual written contract with myself. And even if that number remains 0 for years, it's there as a gentle reminder. Hey, Liz, future Liz is going to need some money. You can't do it now. We get it. Do it at some point. So I think that was a great question. It's definitely a question that, and again, a conversation starter with our financial institutions. But and in terms of for us, for our individual selves, I highly encourage everybody, even if you don't have the money now, put that line in that expense budget. You have a goal, and I think it's important. Great. So, of course, again, our registered retirement saving plan, that's what the RSP stands for. It is a saving or investing account. That's essentially what it is. And that's essentially why we need to speak to our financial institutions to get those kinds of things set up and rolling. Okay. The idea behind these accounts is that we can add or deposit money each year, okay, or whatever payment schedule you're able to arrange. That money will not be taxed. We just get to put it in that bank account, okay? This is good for 2 reasons. It lowers our overall amount of money we earn that year, and so cuts down on the amount we can be taxed in that year, okay? And so it's also important to know that we're not paying tax on what we deposit in the year. We will be taxed on it later when we withdraw it, when we take it out and start using it, okay? So up until that point, our RRSPs are in our budgets, whether we actually have a dollar amount we're contributing or not. It's in the budget, in our expenses. That's something we are paying out, okay? What happens is when we retire, whenever that happens, the RRSP turns into a registered retirement income fund. So what was once an expense that we were paying now becomes an income that we should be claiming. And as we're withdrawing and making use of that money, it goes into our bank account. So as it comes from the RIF, the RRIF, and into our bank accounts, that's when those taxes that were not taken off as we were paying in are going to be deducted and taken out. Okay, so what was once an expense, once we start withdrawing and making use of it, now becomes our income, and that's when the taxes are applied. Okay, so I think it's just really useful to really remember, even if you don't have the funds or don't think you do right now, hopefully making a budget will really make it clear whether you do have any amount of money to put into it or not. And remember, there is no magic number. It's really just the idea that whomever you are, whatever your resources, you are and should be encouraged to plan for future you. You matter, for sure. Okay, so I'd love to talk about a couple of types of income, but before we do that, one thing I'd like to do is I'd like to just jump over to a Google sheet that I started that has an outline of the two lists that we've been talking about so far. So far, we've been focusing on the expenses. The seasonal was an example, and the RRSP. So perhaps we have some information about our RRSPs and these seasonal expenses. What do? We add it to the expenses list. Okay, so just a brief note here. I'm going to jump over to a Google sheet. I want everyone to know, if you have a Microsoft account with @Hotmail or @Live, you have access to a free spreadsheet software. It's the Excel web app. Everyone with a Google account, so @gmail.com, has access to a free software, spreadsheet software, Google Sheets. And that's also a web app. So if you didn't already know, you have access to these kinds of tools. So today we're going to demonstrate creating, maintaining with Google Sheets. Now, that being said, there's also an online budget planner from the Government of Canada, and those links we're going to definitely share in the comments. And this offers a way we can fill in and make and manage our budgets completely online on a secure site from the Government of Canada. Using a program or an app doesn't matter. A calculator, go ahead and do it. Write it out by hand like we suggested. It doesn't matter how you do it. It just matters that you do it. Okay, so I'm going to stop my share here, and I'm going to jump right over to my Google spreadsheet. Sorry, it's taking a little longer.
It's okay. I just realized that my mic was on mute. So I was just thinking about the things like I like how you're framing it as future you. So like future Joanna, what do I want, let's say, to think about for like 5 years from now? What are my goals? This is making me reflect on what I really want versus what I need. And then to help me make those decisions around what are expenses that I can put off, what is optional, and what will improve my quality of life over time.
Yeah.
So that's definitely that my wheels are turning here.
And I love it. Honestly, nothing without your input, because it reminds me that, again, a gentle reminder, our budgets, pardon me, are a living document. They are so malleable, they're flexible, they are not this set in stone contract. And I know I did when I first started budgeting, thinking, oh, okay, I'll put $50 into an RSP, and then not being able to meet that target really discouraged me from picking back up and sort of making use of my budget. So, it is extremely, absolutely a personal document, but don't ever forget that it has to change as our situations change and things happen. So this constant almost evaluation of needs versus wants, sometimes they're just gradually going to change as we go through life stages. Sometimes, like in a pandemic, outside forces will force us to reevaluate those things. That's normal. I don't think that I heard that enough at the beginning. That's totally normal, and actually a great exercise for us to realize, oops, maybe this isn't as important as this thing is. And it's okay if you didn't think about that thing or whatever. It's not to get down on yourself, but to know that you're in control and you can change it however suits your needs, for sure.
Awesome. So let's see that slide.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my Google sheet. Okay. And like I mentioned earlier, we're starting with the expenses. Okay. I have it broken down into fixed expenses, as you can see right up here at the top. Just use my annotation tool to draw that. So I got my fixed expenses right there. Okay. I'm going to scroll down a little bit just to show you. I have another section for my variable and my irregular expenses. Okay, so yours, nobody's has to look exactly like this. It's just giving us ways to think about these things. Okay, so whether it's one list or two lists for your expenses, doesn't matter. It's important that you have one. Okay, so of course there are, you know, things like housing. Do you rent or own? Are you rent or mortgage? And, you know, childcare. There's a whole list for other here. So as we were talking about those seasonal expenses and the RRSP contributions, okay. So here, my student loans. Doesn't really matter. I don't have to switch out one for the other, okay. But I can too as my life changes. And so maybe right now I would like to budget $50. But maybe as the month goes on, I wind up not having the money for it. That's okay. I budgeted 50. What I actually spent was nothing. And hopefully those two columns match.
Sorry. I'm also looking at this and I'm having the realization, like when I get a bill in the mail, because we live in Quebec, it's often in French. And so maybe one thing that people can try to do, because now that I'm looking at this, I think I'll do it as well, is I will write the French words, like I'll have my English words, and then I'll kind of match it, write like the French word next to it, so that when I have it, I'm not always like, wait, what was that again? You know, it will be like, it will be my visual cue to go to my budget. And to make a note of it. So yeah, just a thought to share.
No, that's great. That's perfect. And absolutely correct. You don't need me to tell you that, but just to reinforce, I know, at least again for me, you know, now budgeting has helped manage my anxieties, and I actually enjoy budgeting. I didn't start like that. So it is to say, whatever mapping, whatever tools, whatever things help make this in any way less stressful, less anxiety, super easy. If it helps to map things out, what it is in French and English, I encourage that wholeheartedly. I love it. I think that's a great idea. Okay, so we have our RRSP contributions. Again, I just changed one line. I'm no longer paying my student loans. I got my RRSP contributions in there. Again, if we take our snow tire example, okay, where I knew that I would pay $2,000 in October or November, and I calculate what that would be as a monthly expense, it came out to about $166. So again, I can just sort of change a line here or add whatever's more relevant for me. So I could say snow tires. And I will budget $166 per month, so that when that seasonal expense actually crops up that one time a year, I'll have a little bit of savings set aside for it. I'll be in a slightly better position. Okay. So hopefully you're seeing, oh, this is totally flexible. It's whatever I truly want it to be. Good. So this is what our expense sheet will look like. You're plugging in numbers of what you think you're going to spend. If you're so inclined, you have that actual column and you're looking at receipts or order confirmations and you're plugging in what you actually spent. Ideally, what's happening is you're totaling it all up, you're adding. So again, remember, I'm dividing it between total fixed and total variable, but it could just be total expenses. And I do that for both columns. What is the total amount I budgeted for versus the total amount that I spent? Okay. Now, you might be looking, why is that number smaller? Remember, I budgeted for $50 in my RRSP, but that $50 didn't actually go there. Okay. So it's also really normal that these two numbers might not match up. Okay. It's going to be the actuals that we spent That's the one that we're going to use in our calculations a bit later. Maybe not for right now. This is what your budget could look like. And if that's just on a piece of paper and you've written it out line by line, the item and what you're going to spend, that's perfect. That works too. So I'm going to jump back over to our presentation. Those are just a couple of the types of expenses. Now we want to talk a little bit about the types of income. Okay. So I think for sure, again, some of this might be very obvious. You know, if you have a job and you get a salary or it's hourly, it doesn't matter. You could be calculating that and figuring that in. Absolutely. If you sold an armoire or something this month, that's a type of income. Okay, a variable. Certainly, you're not always selling armoires, but it's money that's coming in, so it counts. Okay, so certainly some of these incomes are obvious. One thing we definitely want to talk about is the difference between gross and net income. Okay, maybe at this point too, if you've already started writing your list of expenses, maybe now you could start also writing your lists of incomes. Okay. So gross and net. The first thing, of course, we got to do with any budget is figure out where and how much money we have coming in. Okay. If you don't have any income coming in right now, still make a budget based on the amount of money you do have. Okay. If you have $0 left to your name, figure out exactly where each dollar will go. It's just time to start planning. It's not about what's in the bank account right now. It's about, like Joanna said, what are your goals? What do you need to do? What do you want to do? You've got to figure that out. Okay, so of course, income in general is all the money we receive and where it comes from. Again, like I said, some of it might be obvious, okay, and we'll talk a little bit later about where some less obvious sources of income might be. But something that's important to note is this difference between gross and net income. Okay, so gross income is the total amount of money we receive before anything is taken out for taxes or other deductions, like a retirement plan, your dental or medical, or your payroll. Okay, so it's the total amount of money we receive before the taxes or any other deductions. Whereas the net income is the money we can actually spend. This is the money that actually gets deposited into our bank accounts. So after all of those deductions, the taxes, the retirement contributions, whatever those deductions are, once they're removed, the net is what we're left over. So if we take a look at the diagram here of the basketball, okay, so we have the gross income going into the net. We get a total amount of money goes into the net. As it passes through the net, deductions are taken off, whatever those might be. Income taxes, payroll taxes, things for our social programming, our Medicare, our health, our dental, our insurance, whatever, and they may be different for a lot of people, and that's okay, but that's all that deductions are, okay? And so what we're left with afterwards, we had the gross deductions, money was taken off for different purposes. What's left over is the net income, like I said, that automatically gets deposited into our bank accounts, and that's what we are budgeting with. That's what we're actually spending. So just a quick little example of gross income. The CERB is a financial support relief measure offered by the Government of Canada. If we applied for and received this financial assistance for the full amount in 2020, okay, we were given the full amount, meaning that the deductions were not taken off. The government didn't take those taxes and things off. They just gave us the full amount, okay? So that is to say we received the gross amount, not the net amount. So CERB is maybe not available in this form any longer, but we're using it as an example, as it's helpful to know the benefit. The CERB will be taxed this year on our income, okay? So remember, whatever amounts we got, no deductions were taken off. We're going to claim that in our taxes this year, and we would have to pay those deductions, those taxes. So just one little example of what is gross versus net. Gross is that total amount. Net is after the deductions, after the taxes and whatever else are taken off. That's what we actually get to spend.
That reminds me of what we were talking about the other day, which is how gross in French is gros. Alors, I mean, it's the big amount, and then the net income, because I have always had trouble remembering which is which. So after learning with you, it's a lot clearer for me, and just that whole gross income is gros income. It's the
Yeah.
whole amount.
Yes. And super helpful. I agree. It's not something that we interact with or think about all the time. A lot of the times the deductions are just made, right? Like we're at a store and we see something for $12.99. We go to the cash, those taxes are added automatically. Things are normally done for us. So we are normally operating on our net income. But there are certain situations where it does become important to know. I love that example. Gross income, c'est gros, it's larger, it's the bigger number, it's straightforward, and I love it. Okay, so I think that's an important part of the discussion, the gross versus the net income, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we go back to our budgeting sheet. But where can we find tax credits and social programs? Where are some of these benefits that we may be eligible or be able to take advantage of? So the Government of Canada has a benefits finder website. So basically what this site is it's going to ask you a few questions. So we'll be presented by a questionnaire, and that's what you see on the screen in front of you. This is what their initial website or web page will look like, and the types of information you can find there. I encourage everybody to check back regularly. As all of our situations change, we may be eligible for more or different financial assistance, okay? So all we got to do is sort of fill out a questionnaire. And certainly some of this information can feel very personal, so I encourage everyone to only answer the questions you're comfortable with. I will also mention that certainly the more questions you are able and comfortable in answering, the more perhaps accurate or information links to other benefits or programs the results can give you. However, it's very important that you only provide the information you absolutely are comfortable with. Just because it's there on the form doesn't mean you have to give it. And that's true of every website, okay? So you will fill out a questionnaire answering as many or as little questions as we're comfortable with, okay? And what's great is we will sort of hit submit, wait a couple of moments, and the website will spit back some results. It'll look very much like a Google search results page. There will be clickable links, and it will be a list of federal and provincial tax credits or social programs that we may be eligible for. So remember, the tax credits are amounts that can reduce the tax we pay on our income, okay? So the more tax credits that can apply to us, the more we can reduce the income that is taxable. So there are some benefits there. Here's what the results page may look like. Now, certainly there's more on the page than I can show you on any one screen. But what is important to know is that, again, these are a clickable series of information. We can click on the blue links to find out more information about these suggestions, these benefits or programs that are being suggested to us, okay? There's no guarantee that just because it appeared in that list that we are automatically going to get these tax credits or be a part of these social programs. They all have sort of their own criterias and the ways they work, but at the very least, by doing this little exercise and taking a look and combing through those results, you're going to get details on perhaps how to apply if you have to, information on how that calculation, again, if it applies to you, is made, or at the very least, the name and contact information of the agency where we can call or contact and get more information about these tax credits or these social programs. So again, depending on all of our individual contexts and situations, some of those benefits could include housing, like low-income housing from the OMHM, or rent supplement programs from the SHDM. It could be health related. So if you don't have any other coverage, there's of course the public prescription drug insurance plan for Quebec. And then of course there's social assistance and social solidarity. If you do have a family, whether you're a single parent, dual parent, whatever your situation is, and you have children, any number, there are the child and family benefits, recently renamed to family allowance, but there's a wealth of information here and avenues for us to explore whether or not we are eligible and can make use of these credits and programs. So highly encourage everybody to take a look at that site, answering again only what you're comfortable with, exploring the benefits that do get suggested. Another thing that's important to do, because some of these credits, not all of them, but some of them are automatically applied based on how you fill out your income tax. If you claim dependents, any number of children, you make X amount of dollars, we may be automatically getting a family allowance, okay? So it is important to do our taxes every year, even if we have no income in the year. Keep track of any paperwork that proves your eligibility for these tax credits and social programs. And keep the information up to date with your federal and provincial governments to keep getting the right amount of benefits and credits. So I know that filling out your income taxes can be a very daunting, somewhat overwhelming process. It's easy enough for someone like me to say, oh, go look at the tax credits and then go see what you're good for. How does that work? What does that really mean? So I don't know if Joanna wants to jump in. I know that there are some workshops upcoming.
Yes, we will have a speaker from the CRA talk with us about how to fill out our own taxes. So starting on February 9th, we will be doing a workshop for families with modest income. And then we'll be doing on February 16th, it will be for individuals with physical and mental health disabilities. And on, I believe it's February 23rd. So the Tuesday, it's going to be every Tuesday starting the week of February 9th. It will be for seniors, and it's all going to be about how to fill out your taxes with your specific situation in mind. So, and it's going to be live. It's going to be in one of those Microsoft, kind of like a Zoom, but in a different format, a different platform. So you'll be able to bring your questions and ask, and we need you to sign up. You got to sign up for these. So feel free. I'll put some information at the bottom as well in the comments, and they start at 1 p.m. Thanks, Liz, for the shout out.
No problem. If I could just tack on, the Atwater Library also has a financial literacy program, and absolutely free. You would have to register, but could supplement absolutely. I know, at least for myself, I needed to attend a few workshops a couple of times. I'm still not doing my own income taxes. Too much anxiety, but at least I have a better understanding of the process, and my conversation with the H&R Block or whomever is doing my taxes is way different than it was 5 years, 10 years ago, for sure. So awesome work you guys are doing. Okay, so we're going to jump back into our topic for today. We talked a bit about a couple of types of income, so the difference between gross and net, and our RRSPs. So I'm just showing you, this is what my income list looks like. You'll notice I put in the SIR benefit, and I lower down there, I have the family allowance. And certainly there could be other sources of income. If you have a wage or a salary, maybe you're an older adult receiving a pension, Okay, again, it might not be the exact same kinds of tax credits, but there certainly are tax credits specific to older adults as well. So no matter what stage you're at, definitely go check out the benefits finder and see what might be available. And then it's just a matter of plugging this stuff into the income section, the income list of your budget, and whatever that means. So you'll see here, I do have two columns. I have the gross over here and I have the net right beside it, okay? So remember, it's to our advantage to try to always work with the net numbers. Remember, that's the actual money that is all the taxes and deductions were taken out. That's what we want to try to be spending. That is not the reality of all of our situations, okay? So again, don't stress too much about that. It's more important that we have these lists and we're keeping track of these numbers than it is we have all of this detail, especially all at once. Okay, so I do have a column for gross and I do have a column for net. You might just have one column and put them all together and that's perfect. Okay, it could be a goal perhaps even with your budgeting exercise. It just starts with two simple lists, and later in years to come, when I feel more confident, when I have a better understanding of what I want to do and where I want to go, you start adding different elements like this. So sorry, one last thing before moving on. Certainly at the end, like our expenses, we're adding these up. We need that final total number of what all of our income together adds up to. Okay, we're going to use those in a calculation shortly. Okay, so we hopefully are starting our lists of our expenses and working away at what those items are, figuring out how much we're spending on those. We're plugging away and building our list of income. Where is our money coming from? And maybe even finding new sources, whether that's those tax credits or social programs. So we're creating the budget. We are doing it, which is awesome. It's one thing to do it. It's a whole other thing. And really an important part is to create a budgeting routine. Again, at least for me to start, I didn't want to devote, mentally, physically, could not devote 8 hours on a Saturday to sitting down and banging out a budget. Less, more often really was a great strategy for me. Oh, okay, I just bought groceries today. I'll go add that to the budget. But it doesn't have to be like that either. It could be once a month. It doesn't matter when it is. It just matters that it's easy for you and that you're doing it, okay? Because remember, our budget shows us exactly where our money's coming from and where it's going. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like I said, if we work on it in shorter amounts of time more often, it can break it down into smaller, more manageable, less stressful, at least for me, steps. We can use the budget as a tool to guide our conversations with family, our financial advisors, whether that's the person at our bank who may help us set up an RRSP, and our creditors. And this one has been a big one for me. I mentioned earlier, I was operating at a deficit for a very, very long time. And certainly the creditors, the people whom I owe the money to, they want the money. And they will dictate a certain amount that I am demanded to pay. After doing a budget and routinely working on it, I could have an honest and open conversation with them and be like, I want to pay you. I cannot afford that amount. This is what I can afford. Now, did I always get that amount? Not necessarily, but it opens the door for that kind of conversation. Genuinely, creditors want you to be able to pay. So a lot of the times, if you can have that kind of open conversation, there is negotiating there. You want to pay, they want your money. Let's just do it in a way that is safe and easy for everyone involved. Okay. What's also great about our budget is we can use it to inform how we're going to file our income tax each year. it kind of becomes this list of what things need to also be included there. We can use our budgets to guide our spending, and we will definitely get ahead. It might take time. It'll definitely take working at it, but we can build the skills to control our money rather than our money controlling us. Joanna, what do you think about creating a budgeting routine?
I think that creating a budgeting routine takes practice. I know that it's something that is can be very stressful, because it's something that I avoided myself for a very long time, because I was always kind of living with trying to like live with the paycheck to paycheck model,
Mhm.
and well, reality, I should say. and and I think that as I've been looking at how I can take the power back, like let the money not control my sense of interactions with the world, it's been really helpful to have a place to talk about it. So when we did the budgeting club, it was really a lot of fun to like get a sense of other people's experience. But for the budgeting routine, I noticed that for me, it was Monday or Tuesday, uh, actually kind of like Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday at the beginning of the week, when it was better for me to sit down and look at the budget, because it allowed, because really my spending happens throughout the week rather than and so if I were to look at it on Friday, I would be sad, I would be stressed. But because I'm looking at it at the beginning of the week, I know I'm making better choices. I've noticed it change it I noticed that it changed how I make choices about, um, if I want to go, sometimes I want to go for a walk and buy a coffee. And my excuse to take that walk is to go buy coffee. But now I'm just taking a walk. I'm not requiring myself to like make some type of commercial purchase in order to justify a self-care practice. you know? Um,
Mm.
and the other thing is like today I dressed up a little bit, to talk about the budget, because I mean, I think that mindset is everything when it comes to talking about money, because it's a stressful subject. And I think even for people who have it's stressful. And getting into the mindset and designating time, like putting it into my schedule and knowing that it's something I'm going to do, and dressing for the part, just like we dress for work, just like we dress to go out to see friends,
Mhm.
really helped me kind of focus the intention, um, the intention of sitting down to do my budget. So, yeah, that's what I think about routines. It's a
I
process.
love it. Yeah, it is. And you hit on so many important pieces of information. This idea of self-reflecting and realizing you were attaching the self-care to this commercial purchase, as you put it, is wonderful. And no, that's wonderful, but the idea that you're making those kinds of connections, and I know it can sound so wishy-washy or cliche, but these are exactly the kinds of sort of intimate and personal um, awakenings. Is it too cheesy to that we all stand to get to or realize from something as simple as making two lists and doing a subtraction, doing this budget.
Well, and that there's control, like I think I always felt helpless around money because I'm not somebody who's particularly strong in math. I'm not good with
Me
numbers. And
either.
I always associated money with numbers. And the truth is of course, I mean, of course it's numbers, but because there's like a tangible object, there's rent, there's food, like there's something about putting a number to an item, an object, that makes it a lot easier for me to understand the budget. Uh, Again, it's the tactile learner in me. Um, and, but I think ever since I started the process, it's been really like, I remember you mentioning like that it helps decrease anxiety. And I think it
Mhm.
does. I think by knowing, like even knowing how much you're missing is helpful because um I remember just the idea of making sure I had enough money for rent. And I guess is we're both kind of talking from like we're of you know we've all struggled with it, and it's like you want to know if you need to contact your landlord and say I need another 2 weeks to make up that difference. And the economy, it's a tough time right now, especially. So knowing what you can afford and what you can't afford is really is power, actually. So that being said, I feel like I've just completely exposed myself to the Facebook world, but it is real. This is one of the reasons we thought literacy in action should start the conversation with people around money, that financial literacy matters, understanding the question about the RRSP. Like, thank you. You went into great detail, Liz. That was awesome. And a part of it is because we are told to do a bunch of stuff, but it's like, but if we don't understand the meaning, if we cannot, if we don't know who to ask questions to, it makes things that much more overwhelming. And that being said, I do want to highlight the something I've been in the process of with COVID and with just calling. There are so many helplines. So call your bank, call the number on the back of your Visa card, call, make appointments, and ask your questions. These people are there to answer your questions and to help you make better, or not make better choices, make more informed choices. So there are resources. And I remember, Liz, when you first showed me the website for the Canada Revenue Agency, like like there are websites, there is information out there, and it's our role here with Literacy in Action and Atwater Library to help people know about them. So thanks for this. It's been really informative. Before we wrap up, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yes, please. I guess, first of all, thanks to anyone and everyone who tuned in. Literacy in Action for hosting this information session, collaborating with the Atwater Library Connect project, and for the funding we've received from the federal government of Canada that made this all possible. We are actually partnering Literacy in Action and Atwater Library on an upcoming what we call roadshow series. So a collection of workshops. Now, not necessarily financially literacy related. It's more specific to our devices, whether that's a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop. And we're trying to attack it in a kind of meaningful, strategic way. So starting next Tuesday, we will have a series of workshops specific to Android devices. And that could include perhaps your Chromebook laptop. On Wednesdays, we'll be having the same series for Windows devices, laptops, computers, whatever that means. Apple devices is going to be on our Thursdays, so iPads, iPhones. So we're really trying to sort of target what kind of device are people using, and here's a series of topics that, as you can see listed below, we're going to start right from the basics. How do you even turn this thing on? What does that button on the front do? All the way up to sort of security issues. So they are definitely sort of very broad topics. We are not supposing to have all the answers or be able to answer everyone's specific questions. But that doesn't mean that you can't contact us for one-on-one support. These are all happening online via Zoom. If that's a challenge for you, reach out to the Atwater Library. We want to get this programming. It's for everyone. So we want to make sure that you not having Zoom or knowing how to click a link is not the reason you're not taking advantage of this. We want everyone to take advantage of it. You don't have to sign up for the full 8 weeks. You can come, you can see the topics, come when you want. They are in the mornings from 10 to 11:30 a.m. They will be on Zoom. And remember, it's less about getting specific answers to specific questions. We're trying to level the learning field. We want to give everybody a good introduction to terms and some of those basic uses, and really hope that this propels each and every one of us to really, again, be empowered and develop your own digital lifestyle. No two people are using even the exact same device in the exact same way. So it's less about this is everything you need to know and more about, hey, what do you want to know? What's going to make the difference? So we're really excited to be partnering with you, Literacy in Action, to be doing this. And it's all starting next week. And that's just a little bit of some of the programming we have. We're going to share in the links below, links to the Connect Project website page of the Atwater Library and other things. We encourage everybody. It's free. Please come and join us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Liz. Indeed, we are excited to be able to offer some of these other workshops because there is a super high demand for it. So that said, guys, sign up because for it to happen. So I'm going to wrap us up. So Literacy in Action, we're a nonprofit organization. We're funded through the Quebec government in order to offer English speaking programming that are literacy based and for the members of the Eastern Townships in the Estrie region. However, thanks to COVID, we get to do all of this fun stuff for anyone and everyone who's willing to click on our videos. And you can reach out to us if you have any more questions. If you want more information about the Atwater Library, please do join us for the Connect project and the, you call it a road show, we call it a workshop series.
Same difference.
And yeah, no, I know, but I'm realizing like what it is. And so yeah, we look forward to that. So thank you again, Liz. This has been super insightful. It continues to motivate me every time we talk about budgeting a little bit more. And so I'll sign us out and shout out to everyone in your COVID homes, or no, that doesn't sound right, but in your homes. I hope this has been helpful, and let us know, give us some feedback. Like this if you've watched it at a different time in the week. We want to know if people are viewing it. So take care in the meantime, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye. Oh wait, how do I I'll catch you on the flip side, Liz.
Okay, bye.